So when we find ourselves in disagreement with somebody, most of us, maybe all of us to some degree, tend to respond emotionally. Like we take it personally. If you don't agree with me, then I can take that personally, and I get defensive and sensitive. Romans 14 would challenge us not to respond emotionally, not to be reactive that way, but to be thoughtful in how we respond. I just want to give you 5 questions to ask yourself. And this takes some humility, and if my wife is watching this, I'm not saying I do this all the time. I'm just saying this is the way it ought to be. Like this is how we should learn to respond to disagreement, is by asking ourselves some honest question. So first question is about defensiveness. Do I quickly try to justify myself and counterattack instead of listening honestly? Am I constantly trying to jump in and make my case and come up with my defense instead of listening with this genuine spirit, asking follow-up questions? The second area would be sensitivity. And here's the question to ask yourself. Am I interpreting disagreement over ideas and opinions as attacks against me? Somebody should be able to disagree with me and that not feel like it's some kind of a personal attack. So when my adrenaline gets kicked in and suddenly I feel much more strongly about an issue than I really feel because it is a personal attack, I'm being sensitive. That means I need to step back. Another area is rumination, and here's the question. Am I replaying the disagreement in my mind? This is where we're like driving in the car down the road, and no one else is in the car with us, but we are arguing our case, right? We are saying everything we wish we could say to this person about the disagreement. You're in the shower, and you're giving you can't handle the truth speech to the person, even though they're not in the shower with you, right? But you're just ruminating on the disagreement. A fourth area is all or nothing thinking. And here's the question to ask yourself. Am I looking at the disagreement in extreme terms rather than keeping perspective and understanding nuance? And this is where we think if we don't agree on this issue, then we can't be in relationship with each other. And I think this has become a huge deal for us culturally, that we have this idea that, man, if we don't agree on whatever it is, then we can't be friends anymore. Like in our marriage, like we've got to agree on all these things if we're going to have a happy marriage. Like you have to agree on these things in order to have relationship. And that's this all or nothing thinking, that if we don't agree, then it's over. And the last question, the area would be personalizing. And here's the question to ask yourself. Am I assuming negative intentions behind the other person's perspective? Am I assuming that they are not well-meaning as they're expressing their opinion, their perspective, their ideas, their interpretation? Am I assuming the worst? This is called the fundamental attribution error, that when I look at my own arguments, my own beliefs, my own perspectives, I take into consideration my intent. I'm well-intended. I take into consideration my experiences and my circumstances that have led me to think the way I think. But when I'm talking to someone who disagrees with me, I don't tend to do that very well. Instead, I assume negative intentions. I assume negative character. I assume that there's something wrong with them just because they don't agree with me. So when you find yourself in disagreement, just maybe jot down those questions or slow down and just ask yourself some of those questions to see if you're reacting emotionally or if you're thoughtfully engaging, as Romans 14 would teach.